Hi, Dr. Kramer here with another video presentation about research. This one is about conveying your ideas verbally and in writing, and about critical thinking. The presentation is a little over 10 minutes long. As you practice and improve your abilities to communicate about music in this class, you'll be aiming for graduate level writing. How we write and how we speak about music is important. In many cases, it can determine how well our audience understands ideas about music, and it can also determine how persuasive our ideas about music are. Now, writing about music is not easy and not something that most of us practice from a young age. Most people learn how to write about music as music majors at the university level. Pop artist Elvis Costello once famously remarked that, quote, "Writing about music is like dancing about architecture." Certainly there are some challenges as we struggle to put into words what music can mean. That said, there are some good practices that we put into place as we write about music. This slide summarizes some of them. First, writing about music at the graduate level should be writing that conveys knowledge in a straightforward and logical way. Do note that the discussion that you're asked to do in Module 1 is all about logic and how we work to make our musical prose more logical. So definitely take a look at that very farcical and fun short story by the American humorist Max Schulman about logical fallacies, about philosophically logical fallacies, and then think about how these logical fallacies can even slip into our writing about music. Second, graduate level writing about music always follows the rules of English grammar and syntax. And if you look at the resources in Module 1, you will see a list of some very common errors of English grammar and syntax. Make sure you proofread your writing for these before turning assignments in. Third, graduate level writing about music demonstrates a flow from beginning to middle to end, or as we sometimes put it, from the intro to the body to the conclusion of an argument. This is important in any sort of writing about music. It pertains to a short 8-sentence discussion response. It also pertains to a long 30 to 40-page paper. As you seek to write about music in a way that brings your listener and reader from the beginning to the middle to the end of your piece, you always want to use good topic sentences to head your paragraphs and good supporting sentences beneath them. Ideally, your reader should be able to read just the first sentences of your paragraphs and get a good sense of your overall argument. Next, as you write about music as a graduate student, make sure you cite your sources. Connected to this is the final thing I want you to think about, and that is, as a graduate student, I expect you to be thinking about ways in which you can respond to what other people have said about music in an intelligent way, and even in a way that approaches originality. This involves being able to summarize in a concise way what people have said about music, sometimes over hundreds of years. It also involves critical thinking on your part, so that you can best pull together an argument or response that might best affect how we think about music today. Anytime you want more feedback on your writing than I can give you, contact the UWG Writing Center. You can call them, email them, or walk in. Their contact information is under the course resources on the course web page, on the home page. Sometimes students think that writing centers are only for undergraduates with poor writing skills. This is not the case. Writing centers love to work with graduate students. They love to work with anyone who wants to improve his or her writing. The first type of writing about music that we will study is writing music biography. Now, there are lots of types of music biographies. They range from the long biographical monograph, which is an entire book about one musician, to the bio that you might find on a university website. In between, we have biographies found in the Grove Music Dictionary. Slightly shorter are the biographies found in Baker's Biographical Dictionary, which is the most famous and well-respected English language biographical dictionary. Even shorter yet are the biographies in the International Who's Who in Music, which before the age of the internet was an important way in which living musicians got to know other living musicians. Important musicians were asked to submit their own musical bios, and these were published for a given year. Although these types of biographies are different in scope, length, and intended audience, they should exhibit certain characteristics common to all music biography. When writing music biographies, you should include birth and death dates and places for any musician no longer living. Somewhere in your biography, you should also have a summary of that individual's career, and you should include details of that person's education, work, and other experiences. Finally, especially for individuals who are no longer alive, it is important to have an assessment of that individual's contributions to the field of music. Writing an autobiography, such as your own music bio, is different than writing a biography about an internationally celebrated musician. Still, this assignment will help you practice good communication about music and perhaps also provide you with a bio that you can use in your professional music careers. Another way in which you will practice good communication about music in this module is through writing the topic proposal for your term project. Your term project is an annotated bibliography. You can find out more about the topic proposal by looking under Writing Assignments in Module 1. And you can find out more about the annotated bibliography assignment under Module 1 as well. That's under the Module 1 Resources. There's also a sample topic proposal under Module 1 Resources. Finally, make sure you check out the video presentation about proposing a topic, which will discuss in more depth topics and your topic proposal. Over the course of Modules 1, 2, and 3, we'll be talking a lot about evaluating sources. To begin with, we'll talk about different sorts of sources. We'll talk about this a lot more in Module 2, but I want to give you a bit of a preview now. There are two basic types of sources that we deal with as we do research. There are primary sources and secondary sources. The primary source is what you are studying. It might be a piece of music, a recording, or even what someone has said about music. But the important thing is that it is the topic that you're studying. A secondary source is anything that has been written about your primary source. As we study topics, we want to study the thing in itself, the primary source. We also want to engage the secondary sources, responding to them and giving our own perspectives about them and about the primary source. Now, as graduate students, you want to use scholarly sources. A scholarly source is a source that is written by a scholar, by someone who is an expert in the field. Using scholarly sources just makes sense. It does not make sense to use someone's ideas as authoritative if that person is not an expert in a field. It's a lot more efficient and wiser to use sources that have been put together by individuals who have studied something for a long time in a very deep way. In addition to that, most scholarly sources go through extensive stages of revision and review. If you check out a book from the library that is published by a well-known press or publishing house and that is written by a well-known scholar, you'll know that the book has been reviewed at many levels. The book might have started out as someone's PhD dissertation, which was the culmination of 5 to 8 years of work. As a dissertation, the text was read by at least 3 other scholars, who submitted it to the highest degree of scrutiny. After a text becomes a dissertation, it might be submitted to a publisher to publish it as a book. Often revisions are demanded before a publisher will even accept a book for publication. Even after a text is accepted for publication as a book, there's another layer of reviewers who give the author, who is hoping to have his text published someday, more feedback to incorporate. Finally, after books are published, they are often reviewed by other scholars in scholarly periodicals, and you can use these reviews to help you evaluate the scholarly books that you read. That is just one example of the robust process that results in scholarly sources. Now, how can we determine if something is a scholarly source? On the PowerPoint are basic questions one might ask. Who is the author? What are the facts of the publication? Was it self-published or published by a large university press? Or was it published by a small press that no one has heard about and perhaps has never published about music? What is the scope of the source, its breadth and depth of coverage? How is the source arranged? Is the arrangement clear and logical, and is it effective for the purpose of the source? On that note, what is the purpose or aim of the source? How and by whom did the author intend it to be used? Finally, what special features does the source offer us? For example, I've already talked about Grove Music Online and noted several of its special features, namely signed articles by experts, bibliographies, and work lists. As we talk about different sources for music research, we'll keep these questions constantly in mind. As a final note about critical thinking and evaluating sources, I want to address internet sources. The internet is a wonderful source for research. It allows us to get a wider variety of sources more quickly than ever before. As you know, not everything on the internet is created equal. Some information is uploaded by scholars, other information is uploaded by who knows whom. We should therefore be especially careful as we look at internet sources, and this slide has several questions to consider. The issue I wanted to bring up at this moment is Wikipedia.org. Wikipedia.org is an online encyclopedia that has articles that can be written by anyone. Wikipedia has given us easy access to encyclopedic knowledge that we didn't have 5 years ago. Still, it is not a scholarly source. Most importantly, there is no consistent review process for Wikipedia. Also, the information on Wikipedia is often stolen from other good sources. If you find something good on Wikipedia, it almost always came from somewhere else. Find out where it came from, track down that source, and use that source in your research. This concludes this video presentation on important elements of communicating about music and critical thinking. Make sure you look at the other video presentations on CourseDen, and if you have any questions, let me know.